Warning: the following story contains descriptions of graphic violence. Viewer discretion is advised. This is the case of Blake Liebel. Blake Liebel was born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada on May 8, 1981. Blake's grandfather, Lorne Liebel, was a huge name in the real estate industry. Eleanor Chattel, Blake's mother, inherited her father's company, All Rose, which makes plastic polytar materials. The company brings in $28 million per year in sales every year. Blake Liebel's grandfather on his mother's side, Paul Chattel, although widely successful in his chosen career, was notorious for his controlling behavior and its tendency to bully. As a result of having such a husband, Blake's grandmother, Leona Lee Chattel, suffered from some form of mental disorder, although the details were not revealed. When Paul Liebel passed away, he had an unusual request to ask his relatives to pass drug and HIV screening tests before they were allowed to get their inheritance. Blake's brother, Cody Chattel, was cut out of the will, as Paul Liebel stated that it wasn't out of love, but the belief that Lorne Chattel, Cody's father, would adequately provide for him. When Lorne Liebel splits with his wife, Eleanor Chattel, Blake lived with his mother and Cody lived with his father. It was also at this time that Blake and his father's relationship worsened. Blake believed that his own father wasn't providing financially enough for him. Beyond the few successful names in Blake's family, there was Blake's grandfather, Stanley Liebel, who was a well-known sailor. He competed in the Olympics in 1968, and then later on developed hundreds of homes across Toronto. Furthermore, Blake's aunt, Terry Liebel, was a well-known journalist and even an anchor at some points for CBC. It was in this environment that Blake grew up. Blake and his brother Cody come from a long line of successful people who made a name for themselves in various industries. Blake moved to California in 2004. During this time, Blake received an allowance of $2 million from his mother. Blake's mother would die in 2011 due to brain cancer and leave another huge sum of money for Blake and Cody. Blake tried to remove his father and brother from his mother's will, but the court wouldn't bite. Blake, in fact, didn't even attend his mother's funeral. Blake Liebel wrote and directed a film called Bold in 2009, which was a complete fail. He was also involved in an animated show called Spaceballs, which was again a failure. In his early career, Blake published a comic book series called United Free World. It involved dinosaurs, helicopters, aliens, and tribes of women. One tribe had little control and the other was fiercer because they were very emotional, as he stated. In 2010, Blake published a graphics novel called Syndrome. In the book, Dr. Chattel removed the memory of a serial killer and allowed him to roam free in a fake town full of actors so he could monitor his actions. Dr. Chattel was able to cure serial killers of their tendencies in the book. There were many graphic scenes in the book where women were tied upside down to drain them of fluids, something Blake demonstrated with the flip of his hand when discussing with his artist. At the beginning of the book, Blake wrote the phrase, "If you love hurting things, what would you do?" A chilling statement that, in hindsight, revealed Blake's dark appetite. Syndrome wasn't received well, and he had to give away many books for free at Comic-Con. In 2006, Blake met Amanda Braun. Amanda, a California model, caught Blake's eyes, and after 5 years, they got married in 2011. About a year later, their first son was born. During this time, they lived in Hollywood, and Blake constantly smoked weed. Blake had multiple plans for success, but never carried through with them. It was also right around this time that Blake's friend noticed a dark turn in Blake's character, as he became more and more obsessed with brutal violence. In 2015, Blake left his wife, Amanda, while she was still pregnant. At this point, Blake's mental health was deteriorating rapidly. Blake believed that his brother, Cody, was in deep debt to some Russian gang members, despite no proof that this was the case, and that he was in danger due to his connection. It was perhaps his mother's death in 2011 that sent Blake down a dark path. When his mother died, she left him with her $5.5 million mansion in Toronto, as well as a few extra millions, but it wasn't enough for Blake and he went broke. Iana Kasian, a young Ukrainian woman, immigrates to the United States to work as a model in California. There, she meets Liebel, who had just broken up with his wife, Amanda Braun, after a few erratic weeks. Fate, it seemed, had brought them together. Expensive gifts followed, including a Mercedes convertible. The two moved in together. Iana gave birth to a baby girl called Diana in May 2016. From the outside, the family seemed fine, but Blake was jealous of his own daughter. He was jealous that Iana was spending all her time with Diana rather than him. Blake constantly demanded intercourse from Iana and threatened to leave her for other women if she didn't comply. Iana had to leave her baby with her mother to patch things up with Blake. May 24th, 2016, shortly after Kasian and Liebel became engaged and 3 weeks after Iana had given birth to their daughter, Olga, Kasian's mother, went looking for Kasian after being unable to contact her even after making more than 10 calls. The day before, Kasian had gone shopping for strollers for the baby. It was the last time Olga would see her daughter alive. When Olga got the police involved, 2 Los Angeles Sheriff's Department officers attempted to conduct a search of Kasian's apartment. They knocked on the door, but left after no one answered. On another occasion, Olga went to the apartment alone and stood across the street, yelling at Liebel to open the door. She would testify later that she saw him approach the window, only to close it and disappear inside. Law enforcement officers found Iana Kasian's lifeless body on 26th of May 2016 in the apartment that the couple had recently shared in West Hollywood, California. They found Kasian's body lying on the bed in the master bedroom, with Blake at her side. Prosecutors said there were indications that he had been lying next to her body, which had been cleaned for some time before the police arrived. Kasian was found mutilated, drained of blood, and lying in their bed. The discovery was made following a barricade standoff between Liebel and police officers. Liebel was subsequently charged with murder, torture, mayhem, and aggravated mayhem, to which he pleaded not guilty. Their infant daughter was in the care of Kasian's mother, who was visiting from Ukraine and staying in a nearby apartment. An autopsy report was released on September 20th, 2017, listing Kasian's causes of death as exsanguination and head trauma. A civil lawsuit filed by the victim's mother, Olga Kasian, included transcripts of Los Angeles County Coroner Dr. James Ribe's deposition, which stated Kasian's entire scalp was traumatically absent and was not found, was not present with the body. Her skull had been stripped down to the surface of the bone. There was no scalp present except for little bits in the back of the neck. Portions of the right side of her face were torn away, including the right ear and part of the posterior face on the right side, all the way down to the jawline. There were quite a number of bruises and abrasions on the face, primarily on the left side, the left cheek, and the left jaw area. A number of bruises and abrasions, including one which turned out to be a human bite mark. She had lived for at least 8 hours approximately after receiving the scalp injury and the bruise to the collarbone. I have never seen this before, and I doubt hardly if any forensic pathologists in this country or abroad have seen this outside of perhaps wartime, so it's extremely rare, stated Dr. James Ribe of the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. During the trial, prosecutors stated that Kasian's murder stemmed from Liebel's jealousy and anger over the baby, as well as his need for power and control over his fiancée. Liebel's brother Cody was the only family member who attended the trial, attending every day. Liebel's ex-wife, Amanda Braun, also attended, and through a statement from her lawyer, expressed her dismay at the crime. On June 20th, 2018, Blake Liebel was convicted of first-degree murder, torture, and aggravated mayhem. On the 26th of June, 2018, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. News media reported the crime as grisly and possibly the most gruesome murder in the history of West Hollywood, if not Los Angeles. Liebel is currently serving his sentence at the California Correctional Institution. Blake Liebel is known as the Vampire of West Hollywood.